Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Season 3 of the Hawk Vision Podcast. I am your host, Chuck Hawkins, here to help you shorten the learning curve on your way to greatness. Over 100 interviews of successful entrepreneurs and thought leaders have graced this show, and so that we can help you understand what the process of chasing and achieving greatness looks like. Make sure you like, share, subscribe across all your social media platforms, especially here at YouTube. More importantly, share this podcast with other visionaries just like you. Now that that's out the way, guys, listen. The person I'm about to bring you today has absolutely blown me away. Became on my radar fairly recently, and I have been obsessed. Y'all know how the reel goes. I am obsessed. And I knew that this was a company and an entrepreneur that I had to feature on the show. She is putting the entire men's watch industry on notice with over 11,000 fans and a business that is growing and expanding daily. One of the brightest entrepreneurial minds around, featured in Voyage, ATL, and GQ, and all eyes are on her and her business. Please allow me to introduce to you Miss Shanayla Sweat. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You know, I've been telling you, I'm a fan, instantly a fan of what you got going on.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you. You know, you're part of the family now.
Yes, let's do it. Let's do it. So I don't even know where to start. I think I told you I'm a watch connoisseur. I love a good watch, but I don't do the watch that everybody else has. Like, I have to have something special, something that makes people, stop, and it's a conversation piece. And what you're doing with A Few Wood Men is absolutely amazing. I don't know if the people can see it at home, but I got on the Devon right now. This watch is fabulous. Talk to us about how this business came about.
So watch connoisseurs like yourself, they seek out A Few Women, right? Because what we provide is something unique, whether it's the names of the watches, whether it's the wood grain within the watch, whether it's the look or the feel, right? They give people different feelings. And it's something that you don't commonly see because it is a million watch companies for you to choose from, but it's something that is very unique about our brands and our representation and, who we value. You see that through our messaging, through our pictures, our visuals, ads, whatever it may be, you can feel it. But for A Few Women, we originally started just based off of my grandfather. So like yourself, he's very much a watch connoisseur. He likes to look, smell, everything's swaggy. He likes to, really bring that presence and essence anywhere he goes.
Yes.
And really just making sure that he had what he needed in terms of a new watch. I look for a watch that would really make sense in terms of gifting him. And so I stumbled upon wooden watches, and they had other watches and different things out there, but I really needed something that could speak directly to him, because it's like, okay, there's watches, but what speaks to this Black man that I see? What speaks to his skin tone? What speaks to his swag? And so I stumbled upon wooden watches and was able to really put two and two together with creating a design that really made sense for, these type of men who were pillars in the community. And so upon gifting him, him just wearing the watches and having them on, other individuals started to reach out to us and to really say, hey, can you get me a watch as well? Can I pay you for this? And I was like, okay, this may be a problem that I'm solving with our particular watches.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was going to be the question that I followed up with, is like, how did it go from a gift to something that became a business, right? Because we hear it all the time. The thing that you do for someone that you don't necessarily charge for, or the thing that you do and it's effortless to you, becomes the business. How did you enter this realm and say, all right, I got to get logistics, design, just the weight, the size, this, what is it, 42 centimeter?
Yes.
Like, it's perfect. How does that come about?
I think it comes a lot with trial and error, right? So once you start to develop your audience, they begin to speak to you of what their needs are. So we knew who we were originally targeting, right? It was men with swag, men who also carry themselves a certain way. Yeah. And so upon really engaging with our audience, we were really able to, showcase and provide them with what they were asking for and what they needed. So in terms of that, our audience will tell us like, hey, can we get this in gold? Can we get this as a bracelet set? Can we get this in this specific way? And we were able to respond. So in terms of our products and where we go with our lines, a lot of it comes from our customer base.
Wow. Absolutely phenomenal. I want to go back to the moment you decided you know, again, of all the products that you wanted to create, you said watches, that's what I want to bring to the market. And you spoke to men that carry themselves a certain way. I have been told several times that I have an old soul, right? My favorite song is Lady by the Whispers. I am not that old, but it is one of my favorite songs. Tell me about grandfather. Tell me about what it was that made him a man of distinction.
So my grandfather, some of my earliest memories is me really walking to school. So he would walk me to school every single day. He would walk me down to the bus stop. And then when the bus would drop us off in the afternoon, he would be there waiting for me. So I really always had him around to lean on, reach out to and speak with and things of that sort. And so it really made sense for me to honor him because he's always been in the picture.
Yeah.
And just as he's been in the picture for myself, he's also been in the picture for other individuals as well. So he's very much a community man. And just like he's my grandfather, he's others people, you know, other individuals, grandfathers as well. Some of these people I know, some of them I don't. Because I've come in contact with people and they're like, oh, I didn't know that was your grandpa. I kicked it with him here. I did. And I'm like, oh, really? So he's just been this man that has really been a pillar to myself as well as others. So
Nice. Very nice. Now, I bought the Devon, but that Malcolm and the Robert, I know I'm not supposed to ask this, but do you have a favorite watch? Because I'm planning on having both of those in the arsenal real soon. I think we lost you. You're muted.
oh, I'm sorry.
No worries, you're good.
So I think with the Robert watch, I don't think enough people show it love, to be honest. So the Robert is really for, you know, the sophisticated man who really is established in himself. I like the Robert, but to be honest, we don't sell a ton of Roberts. And I'm like, hey, like, do y'all not see what I see? Because I like it. I think it's for every occasion. For me personally, my favorite watch happens to be the Montez. So the Montez is the gold watch. If you are not familiar with that name, it's the gold watch, and it's almost I think it may be the second one on our site.
Okay.
But it's also happens to be our bestseller, and it's named after my brother Montez as well.
Nice, nice. Yeah, the Robert is a statement piece. I think because we're not in the office anymore, maybe that's why, you know, like I figure since everybody's been working from home for the past couple of years, maybe, but I will definitely be having a Robert and a Malcolm very, very soon. That is going to happen. So this is really a legacy company, right? Starting as this tribute to your grandfather. Did that make launching the business harder, or did that make it easier because you knew it was a tribute to your grandfather?
I think it made it easier for me personally because even in terms of the majority of our watches, they are named after someone that I know. So either somebody that I know, I've come in contact with, they held some significance in my life at one point in time. So it really allowed it to be easier for me, to be honest, in terms of the descriptions and the men that I had in mind, because I would envision whoever that person was and be like, yeah, that is him, or this really describes him. So that's why even when you mention like the Robert, it's for, you know, that man who's really established, who's very grounded. It just gives me, you know, family man, established man, things like that, where even with like the Montez, it may be that man who's a little bit more experimental in terms of fashion, or he may have, you know, this going on. He may be a little bit more creative in that spectrum, but it really, I think with every product, by it being something of legacy, it really allowed me to capture that person in the product.
I love it. Yeah, I saw the Montez watch, and instantly I was like, now if I was in Atlanta, I would do this. If I was in Atlanta, baby. But I'm in California. I got to, you know, do a little bit more subdued. Okay, so that makes sense. All the watches are named after someone that holds some significance. Because, you know, I'm looking at all the watches and I'm like, wait a minute. I'm looking at what my name means. I'm like, wait, my name, Little Charles, it should be, I know it's on here somewhere. But now this makes sense. Okay, so I won't ask that question that I was going to ask about how the names come up. When you hear the words men of distinction, what does that mean to you?
So, man of distinction, the reason why I think that's so significant to their brand and what it means to me is really the man who is that pillar, right? Leader, responsible, family man, respectable man. And what I don't mean is respectability politics, but what I mean is like the man who is very much coachable. So he is coachable, meaning he learns from his mistakes, he learns from others, he's open to mentorship, he's open to wisdom, he's open to being sharpened. And I think that plays a big part in who that man of distinction is, right? So it's not you just dressing up in a suit or you just putting on a watch. It's your character and who you show up as when nobody else is looking, who you show up as, you know, in times that are tough, in times that are great, and really making sure that you have in tune character. So that is who the man of distinction is. And I think a lot of people, when they buy or purchase our watches or our products and things of that sort, they also have that same feeling or sentiment.
Yeah. How do you balance it all? Because in doing my research, this is not the only business that you run.
No.
You are a mentor and coach as well. A phenomenal success at that as well. How do you balance it all?
I don't. I just do. You know, you hear a lot about a work-life balance and being able to do all of these things. I do them, and I feel like because I do enjoy everything that I do, I'm able to handle it. But if I'm completely honest, you know, I have to delegate a lot, and I don't feel like it's a ton of work-life balance because they both require a lot of my time. But in the same right, there are things that I love to do, things that I've done all my life, so it just comes natural.
Nice. I asked that question because I would say a good 40% of our listeners are in that stage where they're successful in their career, but they're not fulfilled. So they're launching a business, but they're not seeing the success immediately that they want to see, right? And so when you talk to a single mom, or when you talk to a wife that is in the beginning stages, what is it that you will tell her to help her understand that work-life balance is not really a thing?
I think sometimes you have to be realistic with yourself. I think, and you have to also serve yourself first. And what I mean by that is everybody's run is not the same. So for some people, you know, things come easier than others, but you have to know what you're skilled and what you're gifted and what you're great at, and really work within that capacity and understand that you have your own road and your own walk. So for myself, I never compare myself to others. And I think that has proven successful to me, because I'm not really looking at what other people have going on or trying to compete. If I need to take a break from social media, I'll take a break. If I need to take a break from this, you know, I'll roll back. But I think for those who are wanting to get into this space and you may carry multiple loads or you might have multiple things going on, is being realistic with yourself, and also being very patient with yourself as well, because my personality has never been to do so much to where I'm broken down. It's very much like, okay, give yourself grace. You have a lot going on, you know, and if you need to take a break, it's completely okay. So just allowing yourself the space to grow, walk, evolve, and also just being realistic with what your skill sets are, what you're great at, and really honing in on those things.
Absolutely love it. How does Shanayla measure success, right? So when you had this business and you launched it and you knew that it was now an actual business, not a hobby, was it the first 10 watches sold, the first 100, the first 1,000? How did you manage, mark your success and measure it?
I think the first measure of success for a few women probably had to have been when we participated in the Village Market retail. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with Village Market or not. But Village Market is this big, well, it's grown so much, but when it started out, it was a marketplace for a variety of small business owners to really showcase their products. And so what they would do on a quarterly basis is they would have like a marketplace of businesses where you could sell. So think of like, you know, I don't know, an expo. You know, we don't see a lot of expos, but think of it in that sense. And so I had just moved to Atlanta, and I randomly applied on a whim because I had just become in contact of what it was called. And so I was like, oh, okay, this Village Market, you know, this seems like an ample opportunity for me. And so I didn't know it was super competitive to get into. I had no idea. And so when I got accepted, I had other people who were like, how'd you get in there? Like, how'd your business? Like, you're new here. And I was like, I just applied. You know, I didn't know anything. And they really loved our brand and our message, and they were very much on board to say, we welcome you in this village, like we want you to be a part. And I was like, really? So that made me feel like, okay, well, maybe this is a thing, like maybe we're legit. And then when we participated in our first village market event, we had so many people who were so excited about the brand that we almost sold out of like the majority of the watches that we had brought. And I was like, wow, I wasn't really expecting that response. I knew we would sell something, but you don't know what to expect. And I was like, okay, maybe this is a thing. So then when we returned for our second village market event, we had so many returning customers where they was like, oh, I'm bringing my cousin, or I'm bringing this person. You were here last time. We were looking for you. And so that's when I knew that this may really be a thing. And especially living in Atlanta, I was just like, man, it's going to be super competitive, and I just really didn't know how well it would be received. But soon as we did that first event with Village Market, we had people who came back, and I was like, okay, now I think we've arrived.
now we're doing something. I like how the way that you position the company is, and we're always harder on our own businesses, of course. I don't know why that is, but the way that you position the company, there is a air of confidence, quality. I dare say a bit of confident arrogance, I think is the word that I want to use, because that's how I describe myself sometimes. Confidently arrogant. And that's why the watches make sense. So when I look at everything, the package, how it arrived, the marketing, the pictures on the website, everything is amazing. How much time do you put into the marketing plan?
I put a lot of time into the marketing. A lot of time, and to be honest, I don't feel like I put in enough time. And I say that because even though everything that I have done so far has been very intentional, from the packaging, from the names, from, the color schemes and what we, provide as products, because one thing I keep in mind is with melanated skin, you want things to where it shows up for us, right? You don't want to be looking ashy or, casket ready. You want to
right.
And so I've been very intentional with the products, very intentional with all of the things, but even with the marketing, it's a constant, I don't want to say struggle. That's not really the most appropriate word, but a constant direction to say, hey, we need to get it into more faces. Like I would love to have, more celebrities who invest or buy into our brand, especially since, within our community, wearing watches is like a thing, right? You have a rolling,
absolutely.
And then, you have made it. That's people's first check, right? When they get it. And so I really wanted to be something to where it was like, hey, I have a product that not only stands for our community and for our people, but I also want it to be something where it's universal, because as I've moved into the space of working with men and men who, feel very invested in the brand because it shows as a reflection, I'm like, okay, this needs to be on a global scale. So really pushing our marketing to get into the hands of more individuals, to, be picked up and to really scale on a larger platform or capacity for sure.
I love it. And hopefully this interview is part of that process. And that leads me perfectly to my next question. So in business, there's three things that we most compete for, right? Which is visibility, customer retention, and growth. Out of the three, which has been the biggest hurdle so far?
I would say growth. Customer retention, we have no issues with. We do really well with, once you purchase from us, you want to purchase again, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm coming back.
Right. And you can always think of someone that even if the watch isn't for you, can always think of someone to gift this for, a ring or a bracelet. It's expanding to where we have products that serve different needs. But what I would probably say is the biggest hurdle has probably been the growth. And the reason I say that is, even though we have experienced exponential growth, the truth of the matter is growth is also very painful, right? So you encounter a lot of pain points, because as you're growing, you're being stretched, whether you are being stretched in products or, how quickly you can develop something, or, your staff, or, okay, well, now we're serving the needs here, but now we're serving the needs of many more. So I would say growth probably, it's not necessarily the biggest battle, but it's something where I don't think entrepreneurs always talk about growth in the context of it being something that is painful. It's something where it's happy, because people are like, oh, scaling, more money. But I'm like, with more money becomes more responsibility, more, exposure, or whatever the case may be, which also comes with more processes, more things to do, more tasks. So I think growth is probably just, it's a great problem to have.
Yeah. No, my father used to say that growth is like happiness in business. He's like, happiness is a feeling. So you never really are happy. You're chasing happy because you're happy for a moment. Then when the feeling wears off, you're chasing the next happy. And growth is similar because you're chasing the next milestone, right? And then once you get it, you don't want to be, we even look at Elon Musk buying Twitter, like, he don't need nothing else, but you still want to, exactly, like, he needs nothing, but you still want to grow, right? Amazon is about to do a stock split. They still want to grow and do more things. So I completely understand. The lesson that you wish someone would have taught you before you launched a business, whether it's this one, A Few Wood Men, or your consulting business as well.
So the lesson that I would like, so I'm saying a lesson that I would have liked and a lesson learned is you really have to be committed to the process. And so what I mean by that is you are always a lifelong learner. It's always something to learn. So I never want to get into a space where I feel like I've arrived. Instead, it's like, okay, we've done that. What's next? Because I know it's something else for me to, learn, go through, observe, whatever the case may be. I think one of the, biggest challenges with that is, I won't say it's not always spoken about, but just the adaptability and flexibility that you need for the long term and the long haul. I think that's kind of skipped over. And I think even it just may even be where we are in terms of as a world, right? We have like LLC Twitter going on. You have this on TikTok, everything is so microwave in terms of result, right? So they're like, oh, I did this. And you watch this 15, 30-second clip and you're like, oh man, I can do that. But it's not really setting you up for the realistic expectation of what goes on behind the scenes. So I think really that would be my biggest thing that I wish more people would have told me, or really even kind of been in my ear about, to say, hey, you really have to be committed for when things are not so good.
Right. And that's part of the personal growth aspect of business, right? So what does Shanayla do for personal growth? Is it reading? Is it podcasts? Is it different courses? How do you continue to be the icon that you're becoming?
So what I do for personal growth, I really enjoy reading. As of late, I haven't been able to read as much, but especially growing up, I was always an avid reader. So one thing that my mom did is on weekends, other people would go out. She would take us to the bookstore or to the library, and you had to pick books out. And so like, okay, you get you a book, and we would sit down and read. And so even as an adult, I still have a library card. And so for a lot of people my age, that's, why do you have a library card? Like,
right.
I'm like, I get books, but it's also a lot of resources. So I'm a person that always likes to learn. I always like to read. I always like to have an understanding of how people think. So outside of even what I do for A Few Wood Men in terms of like consulting and tech stuff, I really analyze people and how they, their behavior, how they interact with each other, and how they talk and how they respond. And I think even a lot of that goes into A Few Wood Men, because I read our comments, like I read our emails. I have staff that does a lot of things, but I'm actually like looking at the engagement and seeing how people respond to things. So I think that really, pushes me in terms of personal growth, because it's always something to be learned. So even if we have a customer that's not satisfied, or they say, well, you really could have named this that, or you could have done that. Even if I don't necessarily agree with it, it's still some truth that I can take from it. So I think for me, that's the way I always sharpen myself. It's just really being in tune with what's going on around me, and always feeling like there's an opportunity to gain something from it.
Yeah, that part is hard for me, because I've had tons of entrepreneurs on, all successful, like yourself, and the overextending message that I tend to get is we get caught up watching the data, right? Watching the engagement, watching the sales, watching the goals, all those things. how do you balance that part with the expectations that you have? Because I know once you start, and you being in tech, once you see that data, those analytics come in, I know there has to be part of your brain that's like, just try to go all in.
Yes. What I've had to do is really learn to turn things off. And what I mean by that is it's been scenarios where I've had to be like, okay, after, a certain time, I'm turning the phone off, or after a certain day, I'm like, okay, this day I'm not doing any work. So
Right.
I really had to position myself to where I'm like, you can't watch your phone all day, or I can't be on the computer all day, because if, like you said, once you see stuff, then you're wanting to watch, and then you're saying, okay, well, what's going on here? So it's really having to pull back and having or creating boundaries to where I'm not constantly so focused on a result or a task. So I have days where I'm like, I'm not doing anything today. I'm not responding to emails. We're not talking business. Another thing that I like to do in terms of being grounded is in my circles, I do have friends who are entrepreneurs and business owners and things like that. And we talk business, but I have other friends who are not, they can care less about it. And I don't talk business with them. And it's very refreshing because, and humbling too, because they don't care. So those people who don't care, I often, will just kick it and have a good time with them, where I'm not focused on numbers. I'm not distracted by numbers. And I also, they don't care. So when they don't care about it, that business chatter, it kind of has to simmer. So that's a humbling experience, but it's helpful.
Yeah, it gives you time to, quote unquote, not care too, right? You get to dive into something else. That is refreshing. I will say, as an ambassador of East Oakland, California, it is sometimes very good to just be with the family, in Brookfield, and not really doing anything, and not talking business and growth, because it can become all consuming.
Yep.
Right. And I couldn't agree more. Talk to me about networking. If you had to give like a 2-minute speech on the importance and the power of networking and being able to be confident enough to pitch your brand, how does that come into play?
Yes, so I think I am still growing into networking, to be honest. But I think when I got unplugged, meaning when I moved from Nashville and I got plugged into Atlanta, I had no choice but to network, right? I moved here, I didn't know anybody, so it's not like I had friends or connections. I really just had to get out there and say, hey, I'm Shay, this is my brand, this is what I do. And I had to do that. Now, I will say, for people who are wanting to get into the networking space, is when you network with people, it doesn't necessarily have to be something where you're trying to advance. I would say go across the board instead of up the board. So a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm gonna contact the CEO, I'm gonna contact this person because they can do this, but they're not necessarily looking across at their peers and people who are within that similar space for help or for assistance or resource. So I would say, for those who are wanting to network, look across and not up. And I will also say, meet and engage with people where it's a mutual benefit. What can you help them with? What can you assist them with? What resources can you provide to really grow their business? Because if you can show that, then they will do the same thing for you.
Yeah, that part is huge. I think a lot of people have, at least for the past few years, I am of a certain age, and sometimes networking was the whose card can I get and what can you do for me? Right. And they forgot that the acts of service that needs to be like, why should I do this for you?
Right.
So it has to be mutual. I want to do the rapid fire round. We're getting close to wrapping up. I'm going to give you one word, and you give me either a word or a sentence on what that word means to you.
Okay.
Ready? All right. The first word is character.
So what it means for me. So character is who you are and who you show up as when nobody else is around, without an audience.
That's huge. The next word is resilience.
Resilience is remembering your why. So resilience for me is something I have to continuously learn of why I'm doing this for and who I'm doing this for when things, when you're taking the L, which is very common in entrepreneurship.
Yes, absolutely. We might have to, let's stay on this one for a minute, because I haven't heard that phrase in a while, remembering the why. Discuss the why for us. If you're a beginning entrepreneur, if you're somebody that kind of has lost your way, about your why. What is the why for Shanayla?
So the why for Shanayla is what keeps you let me back up. So for me, when I started A Few with Men, there will be I think once a week I quit in my mind where I'm like, I'm done with this. Like, I'm tired. I'm not doing this, or I'm over this completely, or I may just feel depleted.
Yeah.
But your why is what's going to keep you going when you don't have an answer. It's going to keep you going when you don't have the funds. It's going to keep you going when you are at a stop. So your why typically goes outside of like the bells and whistles of your business. It goes outside of like the numbers. It goes outside of like the vanity and the image of things. It's really who you're doing this for. If the world were to end today, could you keep this up based off of your why? And so that's what's kept me going with the Few with Men, because the feeling that our brand and the feeling that I was able to give my grandfather, other people are able to replicate. And I feel like that feeling has what it pushes me. So when others are telling others, other people about the brand, or they're sharing their testimonial, or even like yourself, when you're like, man, like, I wasn't really looking at this, but now it's giving me a feeling. Those feelings are my why. That's what keeps me going, because money really can't buy that, right? It's an intangible experience where we can't put a dollar amount on it, but the value is just out of this world.
Yeah, that's huge. My mentor used to tell me to develop your why, because everybody's initial why is, oh, I got to do this so my spouse never has to work, or I have to do this for the kids.
Yeah.
And he would say, okay, what does that look like? And I'm like, what do you mean? You have a wife, you know what that means? And he's like, no, develop the why. What happens if you fail? Like,
right.
Because if you say I'm doing this for my kids, there's always another way. Right. There's always another option. So he would say to develop it so that you would always have 2-3 layers deep on, if I fail at this, that's going to start a process of allowing myself to give up, allowing myself to quit. And so we were taught to develop a why that was so bulletproof. It was ridiculous. I love that you mentioned that. Okay, back to rapid fire.
And you will fail, right? There'll be times that you'll fail. So definitely having to build that in there.
Yeah. Failure's part of it. I don't think we talk about that enough. Just the same way we have LLC Twitter and real estate Instagram, we don't talk about failure enough. You are going to take some huge L's. It's part of the process. I wish it wasn't. In fact, my daughter just started track right this year, my 14-year-old. Now, mind you, this girl doesn't lose at anything she's ever done until she started track. Right. And the first time she, came in 7th, she was like, what is this life? Like, why is this happening to me? And I'm like, this is what happens when you're not the big man on campus no more, right? You have to, there's some people out there that are running for other reasons than just because they like to run.
Yes.
And that's what that competition looks like. So we worked through that. She's doing well now, but the first couple of weeks, it was a game
and you
changer.
really, like I said earlier, with those who are even wanting to explore entrepreneurship, right? You really have to be realistic with yourself to be like, okay, this is what I can do. This is what I can grow into, and really staying in your own lane. Because one thing that my mom had always instilled in me is like, it's always going to be somebody better. It's always going to be somebody with more money. It's always going to be somebody with this. So when you remember that, it's like, okay, I really just got to focus on me and what I'm great at and sharpen that, because it's always going to be something better. So you can't be like, oh man, but it comes with it.
Yeah. It's a huge learning curve. And I just wish that more people would highlight that part, right? Just to help manage the expectations. The next word for rapid fire is dedication.
So dedication for me is being all in. So I feel like with A Few with Men, dedication is such a thing where it's such a selfless act, right? So I would say selfless. That's just my word for that.
I love it. The next word would be vision.
Vision. So vision for me is similar to legendary. It's where I see myself when I'm no longer on this earth. So I truly believe that everything that I'm putting out, whether it's my interactions with people, whether it's my brands, whether it's consulting, I really want the vision for myself to manifest in a way where I see me leaving impact even when I'm no longer walking this earth.
Yeah.
So it's going outside of me. Everything I do is outside of myself at this point.
That explains it. That explains it now, because when I got the packaging, like everything is just intentional. The box, even so I like details, right? I don't. You'll probably learn this as we form this partnership, but I love details. Even the way the lock works on the box
Yes.
is absolutely phenomenal, because I'll be honest, when I first got it, I wasn't paying attention to open it because I was so busy trying to get to the watch that I tried to lift it, the normal little, and then I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because that takes precision, right? Being able to take that little lock and flipping it over, like that takes precision. How long did it take for you to get to this level of posture that you have right now, right? Where you show up and you present the best version of you when the cameras are on, like, and not just this camera, but when the cameras are on, you can present, you're comfortable in front of the room, you know what you're talking about, you've done your research, and you know the direction of where your company or that business is going, where that client and their journey needs. How long did it take to develop that posture?
I think developing posture is a lifelong effort. Because I think it's just something that you continuously work on and put work into, right? So as you get to another level of you is required. So for myself, I really really make sure, like, even in terms of, like I mentioned, books, right? I really want to make sure that I sound like I know what I'm talking about. I sound like I got some sense half the time. And really just making sure that, with the messaging and what and how I articulate myself is representative of the brand. So I don't want to do anything where it's like, okay, what you're selling doesn't match up to who to what I'm seeing. The math is not mathing. I'm just very intentional about presentation and posture. I think a lot of that I also get from, like, my grandparents. They raised me. So for them, they've always been like, hey, sit up, hey, speak up, hey, they can't hear you, hey, you need to say this better. So I think that's also drilled into me. But I think it's a lifelong effort where you should always, strive to bring the best version of you, and really tap into who that is. So I think as you evolve, it's different versions of you that come about, but you really have to be in tune and self-aware with being, I would say, very graceful with yourself and your development, but very much understanding that this too is a lifelong journey.
I like it. Now, are you a watch person yourself?
So I am a watch person.
Okay.
Now, one thing that's always been my barrier is I have an extremely small wrist. And I don't know if it shows up here, but I'm very tiny in person. So a lot of times I think my personality is very big online, but when people meet, oh my God, you're so small. And I'm like, I know. But for me, I've always struggled with finding watches that fit my wrist. So I've always admired them more on men because I'm like, oh, that face looks so good, or that dial looks amazing. But for me, I'm like, I really don't like this look. So I like them more on men. And we do have a few women's watches, but for myself, as much as I am an admirer, I don't always wear them just because I feel like, I'm a little chicken and I'm like, I just feel like it's a bone. No matter how many links I remove, no matter how many adjustments, I just don't feel like the maths with my wrist.
On your wrist. Because that was my question. I was like, there has to be a few, would it be a few wood women? How would we say that?
Well, I don't know. So I get that question a lot in terms of, are you going to expand the line? Are there going to be women products? And for right now, there's not, a women's line that is coming. Not to say that it will never happen, but I really want to make sure that I am serving men. So the vision that I have for a few women goes outside of products. Like, I eventually want us to provide services, whether that's mental health services, whether it's conferences, whether it's, grooming services. I really wanted to expand on the men. And I say that because even in the discovery phase, outside of me just gifting the watch to my grandfather, my brother, I remember before I started the brand, I saw all of these journals and all this Black Girl Magic and Black Girls Rock, and I was like with it. So I was buying stuff from my sister, but I could never find anything from my brother. And so I was like, they don't have a lot, and my brother doesn't have a beard, so I couldn't get him, beard oil or that type of thing. So I was like, okay, what can I get you, outside of the box? And I was like, there's really not a lot of things that are representative in terms of like Black men. Now that's becoming better, but I was like, that really gives, us room for expansion as the brand grows. So I really just want to focus on making sure that the core audience of men is served. And then, if it makes sense for women, we definitely would do that. But I definitely want it to be where the core base is served first.
I love it. I will say, if you come out with a few wood clippers, and some shavers, it will be, because I know most guys are like me. Well, I'm gonna say most. Some guys are like me. I'll grow a beard, and then 5 months into it, the beard's flourishing, and then I'm like, you know what? Take this thing off, and then I just have the goatee, and then 2 months after I do that, I'm like, I want my beard back, and so it's a vicious cycle. So if there's clippers, down the line, feel free to, develop a Charles, because we don't have the watch yet. I understand.
But now I'm in contact with the Charles, so who knows?
Listen, Google what the name means. I'll tell you, it makes sense. I don't even want no percentage. It just makes sense. I want to talk real quick about details, because I know for when women shop, I have my wife, my 4 daughters. Details are everything. Packaging, the way that it's presented. And so we talked about it before we jumped on, but the tool to add and remove the link. How did you know, or like, how did this make it into the packaging? Because this is phenomenal. Nobody gives you this.
So with us, for me, like I mentioned before, I have a small wrist.
Yeah.
So I had already had my own grievances with watches where I'm like, hey, if this is too big, I'm not trying to look janky if I show up somewhere, if it has this way. So I really wanted men to have control over, how it fit on them, because that's part of the process, right? Yeah. How it fits on you is just as important as the way that it looks. You want it to fit well. You want to show up very much, in charge of your fashion choices. You don't want to feel like the watch owns you. You feel like you own the watch. So. Yeah. And so in developing even like our packaging and what we included, I really wanted to be sure that you had everything that you needed. So in terms of even our packaging, a lot of people are surprised to know that the watches are in a box. They're like, I didn't know that this was in a box. I don't even need it. And I'm like, no, it has a watch box. It has a couch that it's on. It has a tool. We try to give a little bit of brief instruction, but I'm like, it has all of the things of what you need. And then we're also in the process of like developing more videos for people to kind of click on our YouTube or go to our page and like learn a little bit more. So we really want it to be where you have all of your basic needs in terms of wearing that watch and accessorizing that watch and adjusting that watch.
Yeah. Now listen, I'm going to put this is, as we're recording this, it is a beautiful Saturday afternoon out here in California, and I'm going to put this watch to the bar test, right? Which is, as I reach across the bar to order my drink or whatever, somebody normally, it just kind of happens with the watches that I tend to wear. Where'd you get that watch? That's really nice. So I'm going to tell you, I got high expectations. I am an absolute fan of what you've created here, and feel free to raise the prices. Feel free to raise the prices, because you are giving so much value, such a phenomenal product. What's next for Shanayla Sweat?
So what's next for Shanayla Sweat? So really putting in the work to expand the brand. We are releasing an ebook. So what we've seen is, depending on where the man is in his journey, he's either very much grounded in his styling, or he's experimenting. So he's like, okay, I'm trying this out, I'm doing this. So we created an ebook that will be released. I think we may have even published it on the weekend, but we'll start to market that. Okay. We also are moving into the apparel space. So last year we asked some of our customers in terms of like the brand and, what they may be interested in. Overwhelmingly, a lot of people were like, whatever you put your logo on, we buying it. Like, we love the logo. Because if you look at the logo, it's very, very detail oriented. So you see the mustache, you see the man, you see, and he's a Black man. Even people who are peeping the logo, they're like, that's a Black man on there. And I'm like, it is. So, they really wanted apparel. So we're really moving into that space to really showcase a few women outside of the watches and outside of the bracelets, to really bring that apparel. So I won't say what to give too many details, but we're really that space. And then outside of that, we're really moving into allowing some of our family, we call it A Few Women family and supporters, into the space of being investors. So we have a lot of individuals who've reached out and they've basically said, hey, how can we be an investor in the brand? Do you guys have stock? Do you have this? And so we're like, oh, not yet, but we do have some things coming down the pipeline in terms of individuals who really feel connected to us being able to be official with us as well.
Yeah, that is absolutely huge. Feel free to throw some cufflinks in there. I saw the bracelets, the beaded bracelets. Those are nice. I just, if I could throw this Devon on and have some matching cufflinks,
You'll be there.
I think I may be there. Let everybody know where they can find you online. And again, I want to thank you so much for carving out some of your time. Let everybody know where they can find you online, and we'll wrap up.
Yeah, so people can find us or find me specifically on A Few With Men. I think it's on A Few With Men on all socials, A Few With Men _ on Instagram, A Few With Men on Facebook, info at A Few With Men if you happen to send us an email address or email rather. I'm also on LinkedIn, so I'm very active on LinkedIn, not within the last few weeks or so, but for the most part, I like to put a lot of information on LinkedIn. So if you search Shanayla Sweat, you'll also find me there. So A Few With Men on all socials and Shanayla Sweat if you specifically want to reach out to me.
Listen, that's a great platform for the brand too. LinkedIn makes a lot of sense for A Few Wood Men. Absolutely phenomenal. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, you have been rocking with the great one, Shanayla Sweat of A Few Wood Men, and yours truly, Chuck Hawkins, here at the Hawk Vision Podcast. We've been talking about the grown man wrist and watch game, personal growth, business, and so much more. I hope this interview was informative and that we added a smile to your day. But most importantly, we hope we've helped you shorten the learning curve on your journey to success. Make sure you buy your boy a coffee. As you can see, I'm clearly out. That is unacceptable. Like, share, subscribe across all of your platforms. Send in your messages and your guest suggestions. Can't continue to grow this show without you, my visionaries. And I'm so appreciative that you gave us your time today. You know how it goes. There's absolutely no miracle that will ever happen without someone doing something. We'll either see you at the top or from the top. Shanayla, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you so much for having me.